Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters, we have had so much fun trying out all of the features like Q&As and polls that let us be really creative and engage with our audience. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
It's episode 89 of Podcast Royal, and we've got late-breaking coronation information, including a new coronation portrait, our first look at the coronation invitation, and Prince George's confirmed role in the ceremony. The king and queen, yes, let's get used to it now, as it is official, the queen, took their first tour since taking the throne in September, and Prince William took a surprise trip to Poland. Plus, Prince Harry was in the UK last week in court, and Meghan has seemingly avoided a court date of her own. All of this and much more coming at you right now.
Welcome back to Podcast Royal. And how are you doing this week, Rachel?
I am good. I actually have news to announce to our
Ooh.
listeners that I'm really excited about. I mean, Jessica, you've known this for a long time, for like 6 weeks, but as of Monday, the 10th, am the new senior celebrity and royals editor at Marie Claire magazine, which is so exciting. So I have a new full-time job starting on Monday.
Congratulations. I've been wondering when you were going to share the news on the podcast, so I'm really excited to hear that.
Thank you. Well, it feels like the right time. So I have been, listeners, I'm sure that I know I've mentioned Marie Claire many times on the show because I've been working with them. I started as their weekend editor in February of 2022. And then in September, after the Queen passed away, I became their Royals editor. But those were just on the weekend. So I had another full-time job Monday through Friday. I've worked 7 days a week since February of 2022, and I'm so excited to no longer do that. You have no idea. And so now, as of Monday, I will be at Marie Claire full time. So I have left my other full time job. My last day there is the 6th, which is Thursday. And then, yeah, so it's a new chapter for me. And I'm so excited to be with Marie Claire full time. We've strive to provide the best royal coverage as long as I've been there and before that as well. And that will continue. So please keep reading, listeners. And I'm just so excited for what's next.
Well, you are going to be just swimming in royal news every day. So
Every single day.
you'll be up on everything and ready to talk about it on the podcast.
Yes. Oh my gosh. This is right now. I write 8 articles a week. I write 4 on Saturday and 4 on Sunday. And now it's probably going to quadruple. And gosh, I thank God that I like the Royals, right? Because I'm going to be immersed in them for a very long time. So I'm very excited and thank you. You and I have celebrated, like, this has kind of been in the works for a minute, and so it's just so excited that it's finally happening, and I'm just honored and thrilled. So that's my news. How are you?
Awesome. I'm doing great. We have, a lot going on over here. It's a great fun time of year. I love April. April's always a fun month.
Me too.
Thankfully the pollen's not bothering me this year.
Oh,
And
girl, have you been outside today? That I literally got a computer alert that said high pollen alert. So actually, the pollen has not been bothering me. This is such a Southern conversation to be having, but the pollen has not been bothering me until this past weekend. And since this past weekend, I've been a mess. It is bad out there right now.
well, everything's in bloom, which I love. It's like you go to the grocery store and there's all these beautiful flowers, and I can never
Mhm.
resist getting some for my house. And my dog likes to get outside in this weather, and I like it too because it's not freezing cold going on walks. So, yeah, spring is it's just a fun time of year.
I think April and October weather-wise are my favorite months of the year. So I love
Oh yeah.
when winter turns to spring and when summer turns to fall. And so it's beautiful out there. Unfortunately, the pollen is, at least for me, driving me crazy. But I can't wait to see you again. We've been in this really great habit of seeing each other about once a week ish. So we need to plan our next dinner soon because I love spending time with you. But let's get into the royal rundown. We actually do have quite a bit to cover that has happened in the past 2 weeks. So, some breaking news to start the royal rundown. King Charles and Queen Camilla's, that's going to take me some getting used to. And we'll talk about that in a second. But Queen Camilla, it's happening, everybody. Their coronation portrait has been released as of Tuesday evening. And Jessica, I want you to tell me the first thing that you notice about Camilla in this photo.
Well, I mean, the very obvious thing is that she is once again wearing that blue color we keep seeing her in.
You heard it here first, or maybe I don't know if other podcasts have caught on to this as well. I really am not sure, but you heard it here on our last episode, or I think it might have even been the one before that. But Camilla is wearing so much blue since becoming queen, and she's in blue again, and she looks beautiful. I mean, she looks stunningly beautiful. And but she's in, and we're going to talk about her being in blue again in a minute, but she is wearing blue again. This photo came out right before we started recording this Tuesday evening, and appropriately the two chose blue as they are pictured in the blue drawing room at Buckingham Palace. We also learned more about the coronation today, including that Prince George will be a page of honor along with Camilla's three grandsons, Freddie Parker Bowles, Gus Lopez, and Louis Lopez. They are four of the eight pages. So George will be a page for his grandfather, Charles, and the Camilla's three grandsons, Freddie, Gus, and Louis, will be pages for Camilla. And so Camilla has one other page, and Charles has three other pages. And we also got to see the coronation invitation for the first time. And we are looking at it right now on our shared Google Doc. What do you think? There's a lot going on this invitation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not, so it doesn't give that, when you see like a really formal invitation, like a wedding invitation, it's very simple. It's like a cream or something with like gold writing. This does not give that. It almost gives like storybook, like forest
Mhm.
creature vibes. There's blue butterflies, there's daffodils, strawberries, all kinds of different little flowers and
Mhm.
greenery. I mean, I really like it. It's cute. It's really pretty, but
Mhm.
I think I see a bumblebee on there too. Like it's
Mhm.
very naturey.
Well, that doesn't
Not what I
surprise me.
expected.
Yeah, I don't know what I expected, but this probably wasn't it, but it is beautiful. And, there's a lot going on in this invitation, but the number one thing that stands out to me is that there's that Queen Camilla. So that is, by virtue of this invitation, I see that as the palace saying she is no longer Queen Consort Camilla, as we've been calling her since September 8th. She is Queen Camilla. And so I told you listeners, I've been transparent that it's been difficult for me to grasp that, but I think that this is my sign that henceforth she will be Queen Camilla, no longer Queen Consort Camilla. It bothers me a little bit, but as of today's episode, I am going to start calling her Queen Camilla because that is what she is. So it doesn't matter what I think. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, same. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to, but I think that's going to be what we're going to be expected to refer to her as.
Mm-hmm.
The invitation's fun. Listeners, if you can go find it online and take a look, or maybe we can share it on social media after this episode, but it's very, very
What's
colorful.
going on in the bottom left corner? There's like, does that little blue thing have his tongue out? Do you see that? What's going on?
I'm not
And
sure
then
what that
that thing in the middle, I was reading up on before we started recording, I was reading up on, I mean, everything on this invitation has symbolism, and we won't go into all of it, but as you could expect, everything has meaning. And that little it's literally called the Green Man, and on the bottom of the invitation in the middle, and there's a story behind that too. But I'm just like transfixed by this little creature in the bottom left with his little tongue out.
I
I
mean,
don't
you
know.
could look at this thing for a
Forever.
really long time and see all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I don't know what that is. And I will say this is the first time I'm seeing it. So maybe I'll need to inspect it a little bit more and get some more
Hmm.
thoughts. But
There's a lot going on in that invitation. But anyway, back to George. So George is going to be joined by his sister, Princess Charlotte, his brother, Prince Louis, and his parents, the Prince and Princess of Wales, in the procession from Westminster Abbey back to Buckingham Palace. Everyone will then go up on the balcony as they traditionally do. Their carriage will follow behind the gold state coach, which will be carrying the king and queen. And by the way, I think Camilla, well, there could be a whole article or a whole podcast about Camilla's changing titles throughout the years. And when they got married in 2005, it was said that she would just only ever be princess consort. Well, then, of course, the queen in February of 2022, yeah, of course it had to be because she passed away in September, said that she would be queen consort. And then, of course, when her late majesty died, we called Camilla queen consort to differentiate between Camilla and her majesty the queen who had just died. But now that it's very obvious who we're talking about because it's been what, how many months has it been? 7 months, I think, 7 or 8 months since her late majesty's passing. It's obvious now who we're talking about, and that's Camilla. And so now she's the queen. So that, I mean, we've said the queen for ever. Speaking of Queen Elizabeth II, and anyway, it's just not about me. It's not about me. I'm just gonna have to get over it. But so I have some questions for you. Okay, first of all, so it's been rumored, and now it's finally confirmed, but it's been rumored that Camilla's grandchildren would have a role in the coronation, and now we know. And then she has granddaughters as well, and they're going to be involved as well. So do you think that this is the beginning of an increased role for Camilla's children and grandchildren who have really largely heretofore stayed in the background, right? But now their mother and grandmother is queen. So do you think this is the beginning of an increased role, or do you think this is just a one-off thing?
I I sort of see this as being a one-off thing. I mean, we really don't see or hear much of her side of the family ever, and I don't really anticipate a change in that. Again, I think the focus going forward is really going to be on the line of succession and William and his children. I would be surprised if we see more from them. Do you have thoughts on that?
I think you're right. I think that I mean, this is a big day for Charles. It's also a really big day for Camilla too. And they will be crowned, Charles and Camilla will be crowned side by side. And so naturally, of course, if there's an opportunity to involve her grandchildren, she would want to do that. But I think her kids, Tom and Laura, are very private and they want to be that way. They don't want to be in the spotlight. I mean, I think, when you think of Christmas at Sandringham now, you would never think of Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopez being there, but when her late majesty was alive, but now of course they were and they will continue to be because that's their mother. And so, but as far as official royal duties, I agree. I think this will probably be a one-off thing, but um I want to ask, I have to ask this because as of this recording, Tuesday night, what day is today? The 4th, we still don't know whether Harry and Meghan are going to be there. And, we could debate this, go back and forth forever. I think the RSVP deadline for the coronation was yesterday, the 3rd. And, we know because the Sussex office confirmed it that they were invited, but we do not know if they accepted or not. So I have two questions. Number one, do you think that we will know prior to the ceremony, or will we just have to tune in and see if they're there? And the second part is, do you think they're going to come or do you think they're going to skip?
I think most likely we'll know ahead of time if they're planning to be there or not. I think it will come out one way or another. It's hard to say for sure. If I had to take a wild guess, I would say I do think that they will attend. I will say this, and I feel pretty confident that I don't believe Harry will attend without Meghan. I think they'll either
I
both
agree.
go or neither will go. And I'm leaning toward we're going to see both of them there. What do you think?
Well, I've said that on the show before. They're going to come as a package deal. And that's not just because they're so loved up or whatever, but it's because of Archie's birthday, right? So they're not going to have one parent stay behind in California with Archie and then the other be in the UK on that day. I think whether they stay or don't, whether they go or they don't, they're going to do it as a family unit.
Well, I also think if you have strained relationships with people, like you don't really want to go alone, right?
No,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's also probably a valid reason too, is to just have somebody there who's kind of on your team.
100%. And so, if reports are to be believed, Harry and Meghan have been making some pretty big demands of the coronation. I think I talked about them on the last episode. And you're going to talk about this at length in a minute about Harry being in the UK last week. But I just read an article today that he wanted to see Charles while he was there. Of course, he couldn't because we'll talk about this in a second as well. Charles and Camilla were in Germany. They were on tour this week, and so they couldn't link up and connect. And so I don't know. Like, I mean, obviously, I hope to see Harry there. I think that it would be really sad if Harry missed this huge moment in his father's life. I mean, this is the moment that Charles has been waiting for and working for 74 and a half years. And to not have both of his sons there would be really devastating. So of course I hope that they're there, but I don't know if all of Harry and Meghan's supposed demands can be met. Like I've read that they wanted to be on the balcony, and I read that they wanted to have a birthday shout out for Archie at one of the coronation events, and all of these different things. And I don't know if those demands are going to be able to be met. And if they're not, then does that mean that the Sussexes don't come?
Well,
I don't know.
those some of those demands seemed a little bit unreasonable to me. I don't think a birthday shout out is something that should be expected at this type of event. But also, it's really interesting if Harry chooses not to attend. He's never actually attended a coronation before. And
I
it's so
don't Very
strange
few
to think
people have.
about. Well, it's strange to think about, a member of the royal family, not attending when the opportunity is there. It would seems like that would be something that you would want to go to.
Well, especially your
Um,
father. And I think, if they don't go, I think that I don't know how you can come back from that. I mean, after everything. So I really hope to see them there, but I don't know. I mean, my final prediction, just because I hope this and I wish this, is that they will be there. Whether they will, I don't know, but I hope by next episode that either the palace won't say, but the Sussex team might say that they're coming or not. And so I hope that we know before the event. I don't know. We'll just again have to see what happens.
Well, while we're on the subject of the coronation, we did also hear that President Biden has declined his invitation to attend the event. So we got this news, and of course, people start reading into it. People are trying to determine if it's, some kind of snub. But I really don't think that that's the case. We've seen a lot come out since then, and it looks like there's really no expectation for a US president to attend this type of event. Even though it is a shorter ceremony than what we've seen in the past, it's still a really big production, and there's a lot of coordination going on. There's a lot of time sitting in a crowd of 2,000 people. So I think ultimately that could be a reason why he chose not to attend. But again, back to presidents not having this expectation. I didn't realize until I read this week that no other US president has ever attended the coronation of a monarch. So he's really kind of keeping in tradition here with that. And I do think, whatever drama that people were trying to stir up around him not attending is a big nothing story. I don't think there's really anything to it. We did hear he could send someone in his place. So we'll wait and see if that happens. We don't have any word yet on that. But it doesn't look like he'll be in attendance.
Well, I have 2 points on that. So number one, President Biden will be in Ireland this month in the middle of April. And so that would be, I mean, not that it's, I guess, that big of a deal to go back and forth, but he will be in Northern Ireland for part of his visit. And I think that I read somewhere that he and the king will link up or try to link up Of course, President Biden and the First Lady were in attendance at the Queen's funeral in September. The second thing is the last coronation was in 1953. The president at the time was Dwight Eisenhower. He, as you just mentioned, did not attend the coronation. He did send a delegation of 4 men in his place, 4 high-ranking officials. And so if President Biden does not go, which it doesn't seem like he is going to, again, I agree with you. I think it's a big old nothing burger, as they say, and I think that he will send at least one, if not a small delegation of people in his place, and it will be interesting to see who he sends. But I don't think there's any there as far as drama or snubbing or anything like that. So I agree with you. But let's talk about the King and Queen's first tour since becoming a monarch in September of last year. That happened last week. If you'll remember, we talked about this on the last episode. Charles and Camilla were due to go to both France and Germany, but because of protests in France, that leg of their tour was postponed. The postponement request actually came from French President Macron himself, who said we would not be sensible and would lack common sense to go ahead with the tour after unions planned for a day of pension protests during Charles and Camilla's visit. The two were planning on visiting Paris and Bordeaux, but both cities were ensnared in violence leading up to the visit, and some of the worst since protests began back in January, the BBC reported. So the visit to France was slated to be 3 days in length, and no rescheduled date has been set just yet. But that said, the Germany leg of their tour did go on. The couple arrived in Berlin on Wednesday, the 29th of March. They were welcomed off the plane with a 21-gun salute and a military flypast. They actually made history as the first foreign head of state to be welcomed at the Brandenburg Gate. Camilla, here we go again with the blue. Once again, seems to be a pattern for her these days, wore blue to her Germany arrival. She looked beautiful. I am beginning to believe that this is not a coincidence. Maybe it's just as simple as this is the color that she prefers on herself. I don't know. Maybe there's
You
a
know,
deeper meaning.
I feel like, remember last year we kept seeing a lot of, at the time, the Cambridges in blue too, but it was like and we even saw Queen Elizabeth in this like powdery blue color, and we saw the
Mm-hmm.
Cambridges in these light blue colors. So I'm sort of wondering, is like the shades of blue is kind of what the line of succession is adopting as their preferred color palette lately? I don't know.
I don't know, but I really like this color. I really like this color and
Like
the
a
hat.
turquoise.
Yeah, like would you call that a turquoise? I'm like that's kind of like a is that like a robin's egg blue to me a little bit. I don't know, like a
Mhm.
Tiffany blue. I don't know. But she's got her hat on and that's a little bit well that the hat it looks turquoise. But I digress. Anyway, so but
Okay,
then
see, wait, I would call the hat more like a teal.
am I colorblind? I don't
Maybe,
know. So
maybe I am.
I'm calling that hat. Yeah, I could see that. It's difficult to see because there's some feather situation happening in the front. But but that coat is like a robin's egg blue to me. Like a very that coat is the same color that Kate and Charlotte wore to Easter last year, and I love that color a lot. Anyway, I digress. But so that evening, Wednesday evening for a state banquet, Camilla did not wear blue. She opted for a black gown with silver embroidery, and she wore the Greville tiara and Queen Elizabeth's diamond fringe necklace. So we're looking at that. I don't like this dress at all, Jessica. What
Really?
do you what we're looking at a photo now. I love the tiara, but what do you think of this dress?
I actually didn't dislike it. I mean, it's not really something that I personally would choose if I was, dressing myself or something, but I think it looks good on her. I think she pulls it off. I kind of like how the silvery in the dress really plays with the tiara that she's wearing and her
Mm-hmm.
jewelry, and the black is more formal. I like that more than some of the blues, but I don't hate it. I think it looks nice on her.
So we're looking at a photo of this photo is Charles and Camilla and the German president and his wife. And so it's kind of a far away shot and I know that's embroidery on that, but it kind of looks like a pattern from back here. And
Hmm.
I don't like the pattern, but like I'm sure the embroidery is beautiful up close, and the tiara is stunning. I mean, that's one of my favorites that I've seen on her. I love that. Anyway, so and her necklace is beautiful too. Okay, well, we can be on this forever, but there's a lot to talk about. They were busy for 3 days in Germany. So the next day, March 30th, Charles received a standing ovation at the German Parliament. He was the first British monarch to directly address the assembly. He gave his speech in both German and English, and he pointed out the bond between the UK and Germany, noting that the two countries' relationship meant so much to his mother. And he also praised Germany's support for Ukraine during that country's ongoing war with Russia, during which he also reaffirmed the UK's commitment to the cause. So then on Friday, their final day in Germany, was a very busy day for the couple. They rode a train from Berlin to Hamburg that morning. They visited the Kindertransport Memorial to honor the 85th anniversary of the Kindertransport, which was a rescue mission to save 10,000 Jewish children by providing safe passage to the UK during the Nazi reign. Camilla laid a white rose, and close observers noticed that she was wearing Prince Albert's brooch, a sapphire and diamond pin that was beloved by Queen Victoria and has been passed down ever since. It's actually a thoughtful choice, as most fashion diplomacy is, as Albert was born in Germany and Her Late Majesty wore the same piece while visiting the country back in 2015. And then Charles and Camilla then went on to the St. Nikolai Memorial, the remains of a church destroyed when the Allied forces bombed Hamburg during World War II, which was 80 years ago. Charles and Camilla then, busy day, went to City Hall before Charles went to a green energy boat tour. That is so Charles. And Camilla went to an elementary school where she read to children, which is so Camilla. And their final engagement of the day took them to the Schuppen. I hope I'm saying that correctly. 52 warehouse venue. Charles raised a pint. It was a big celebration. And then they got on a plane and flew home. So that those 3 days alone, that's an exhausting visit. Imagine adding 3 days in France to that as well. It's a lot. So while the couple was in Germany, by the way, the first official portrait of the king was released back in London. It was created by Alistair Barford and was done in just 2 weeks' time, which that seems crazy fast. I've never painted a portrait, but that seems very fast. Charles actually never sat for the portrait. I'm sorry, I think this is so awkwardly funny. The artist did have time to study him while he attended a Buckingham Palace reception in February where the artist photographed him and sketched him. Like, if you don't know who this guy is, you're like, who the heck is this guy taking pictures and drawing the king? What is he doing? But now we know it's for his first official portrait. Can you just imagine like the guy in the corner like sketching and you don't have any context? But anyway, this isn't the first time Barford has painted royalty. He actually painted the late Queen Elizabeth back in 2015. So we're looking at a photo of the portrait. What do you think of it?
Well, I think it's a nice photo of King Charles. I mean, I think his face looks kind of like warm and welcoming, like approachable.
Mhm.
It doesn't give royal vibes though. It's like, any person could have this portrait in their suit, their tie
Mhm.
and their suit. It's sort of, just I don't know. He's not wearing like a crown or anything super fancy, which, I don't know. Maybe there's a reason for that. But as far
Looks
as
like
the
your
way he
standard
looks,
operating procedure stock trader or like Wall Street dude
yeah, I
or,
mean,
or head of
but
state.
I like his expression seems, like I said, warm and friendly and approachable. I mean, I don't think it's a bad photo. It's just I wouldn't see this and think king, right? Like,
Sure. And maybe that's the point, right? But there, okay, so it's good. It's not a bad painting at all. It's just like something's just a little bit off, and I'm trying to figure out where it is. Like maybe it's like the top of his nose or something. Like the bottom half of his face is fine, but like there's just something around the eyes and the upper nose that like just looks a little like
well,
looks a little pinched. I don't know.
so I think
I'm
this
not an
is
art critic.
I think this is common. Remember when we had the portrait of the Prince and Princess of Wales? I feel like
Mhm.
people said the same thing, like, there's something about their expression. And so every time I see a photo that someone has painted and it's not a photograph, I sort of just, I mean, my goodness, somebody did this with their hands, right? I don't expect it to
In
be an
2 weeks,
exact
2 weeks.
image, right? So I think this is really great
Mhm.
given, what it is. It's not gonna look exactly like a photograph, right? Because it's hand painted. But I do think, to your point, I think that's something that we hear a lot from portraits that are created, not from a camera, whether they're painted or drawn or
Mhm.
whatever. I think that's sort of expected. But I mean, yeah, I mean, very, very talented. I think it's a great picture.
Yeah, it is. It's very, and it's really, I mean, this is his first portrait, so it's historic and it's good. I mean, I'm no art critic and I have no room to talk, but there's just a little, and that, like, you're right. Paintings are that way. They're not photographs. But yeah, well done. Well done.
Well, while we're talking about our royal men, we'll hop over to Prince William. After we recorded last week, we saw him pop up in Poland totally unannounced. So he was there meeting with British and Polish troops as well as Ukrainian refugees. We saw him meet with women and children at a center where they were able to stay and sleep and get meals and have access to hygiene products. We saw him interacting with kids. They were taking photos. I thought there were some really sweet images from that trip. He was taking selfies and just having a good time, and some really good photos came out of that. It's no secret, though, that the Prince and Princess of Wales have supported Ukraine. We've seen them express the support in the past. We just weren't expecting this trip to pop up. But Prince William, like I said, he visited with the troops. I believe he visited with the president of Poland as well. And he actually said that he decided to take this trip because he wanted to personally tell the Polish people and troops thank you for their support of Ukraine during the ongoing crisis there. We know British troops are over there as well. He met with them and they're helping train Ukrainian soldiers. So that was the purpose of his trip. I think that was something that he personally wanted to do and was really meaningful for him. But did you like those photos that came out
Oh
of there? I
yeah.
think I shared one on our Instagram.
Yeah, they were great. It sounds like it's a good trip, and I think that that's going to be the way it's going to mostly go going forward. For I almost call them the Cambridges. The Wales is I don't think we're going to see many 8-day Caribbean tours. I think it's going to be like Kate's Denmark trip or William's Poland trip, popping over, quick, coming back, some mostly solo, and I'm really impressed by the visit.
Well, William was not the only one of the Waleses working these past few weeks. So I think it was Saturday, the Princess of Wales released a video on YouTube highlighting her Shaping Us campaign. So in the video, she met with Richard Walker of Iceland Foods, which is a grocery store chain in the UK. She asked him how his company is incorporating the early years finding in support of Shaping Us. And they talked about this in the video. Catherine mentioned, in addition to children, it's also really important to look after the well being of the adults raising those children that are going through the early years. And Richard actually talked about giving out food vouchers. He talked about freezing prices on their 1 pound line for those struggling to really make ends meet. And that's, a few of the ways that they're kind of trying to help support this bigger picture of well being, both for children and adults. He also talked about interactions with people and having conversations and showing empathy. So he said Iceland Foods is a family business, but it's also a business of families, which I thought was a really interesting way to word that.
Mhm.
He talked about the soft skills businesses are looking for and how those are really developed in the early years. And they also mentioned these emoji boards that they're putting up in their stores to really help spark conversation around feelings and encourage kids to talk about how they're feeling. So I guess they would essentially maybe talk about the emoji that matches how they're feeling that day, whether it's a smile or a sad face or, whatever that might be. So that was really cool. Did you see that video?
I actually didn't. I saw that you had put something on our stories or something about that, about Iceland Foods. I need to go back and watch that.
Yeah, it's linked on the Prince and Princess of Wales Instagram account, so you can go right to it. But we also
Okay.
saw an article by Catherine in the Financial Times. She talked about the business task force she created for Shaping Us. She talked about brain development from pregnancy to age 5 and how experiences in those early years really shape the social and emotional development of people. So those soft skills that you develop in those years are the ones that are desired in adults in the workforce. And so she's kind of making this connection of how the early years really play into your adult life and how development at that stage is super important for thriving as an adult. She also tied in the social and emotional development of children into the ESG framework that's being incorporated into a lot of businesses. And I wondered when we got to this point if she was getting a little too political for what we traditionally see from royals. So she's essentially asking businesses to incorporate this campaign of hers into the ESG framework, which I think will ultimately push companies to prioritize, this campaign of hers if they want to comply to these ESG standards. So I don't know, Rachel. I agree with Catherine that the early years development are really important. I think she's highlighted some really great information that can really be used to support the development of soft skills and promote a healthy and, social and emotional well-being. I think her heart is in the right place with this. And I'm not really an expert on this topic, but I just wonder if she's getting a little too political here. It does seem like she and Prince William aren't really as shy of politics as we've seen other royals be in the past. I do think there are a lot of non-political ways she can promote her work that will keep her more neutral as a royal, and I feel like she should explore those. But I'm really curious to hear from our listeners on this. I would love it if listeners would send us a DM or an email. Let us know what you think about her new initiative here and how she's promoting it with her business task force, her article in the Financial Times. Do you think that it's a little too political, or what are your thoughts there? So I don't know if you have thoughts on that, Rachel, but I would love to hear from our listeners too.
I don't think, yeah, I would love to hear from listeners too. I don't think so. I mean, I don't even see, like, maybe I'm missing something, but I don't even really see politics really. I mean, yes, like she's definitely delving into the business world, but I don't think she's getting too close to politics at all, unless I'm missing
Well,
something.
we see her work, really closely with a lot of nonprofit organizations. So I do feel like there's some opportunity there, maybe to put some incentives in place or some programs in place through some of the charities that she works with to really help
Mhm.
promote what she's working on. But I don't
Yeah,
know. I'd love to hear from listeners on that.
absolutely.
So you did mention earlier in the episode that we were going to talk about Prince Harry. And speaking of royals traveling, we did have both brothers pop up in unexpected places since we last recorded. Like you said, we were all really surprised to see Prince Harry show up in London last week for a court case. He, along with other celebrities, including Elton John, Elizabeth Hurley, and Sadie Frost, are suing the Associated Newspapers for unlawfully collecting private information by bugging phones and placing recording devices in private places. We were really not expecting to see him in London, but his car dropped him off at the High Court, and he walked in by himself. Did you see him bump into that one reporter,
I,
Rachel?
yes, I did.
I was like, oh, he did not look happy when when he
No.
turned around.
Well, but he's probably not happy to have to go to court, and he's probably not super happy with reporters in that moment, probably.
Well, this was the first time Harry has been in the UK since the Queen's funeral. A lot of people were wondering where he was staying and who he was seeing while he was in town. It seems to me like he was probably staying at Frogmore Cottage, which that was my initial guess, and I feel like I've seen that kind of come out recently. Some outlets have reported that, but we've heard that the Sussexes have until the summer to fully vacate the property. So I do think if they decide to come for the coronation in May, they'll probably stay there then as well. And to me, it makes sense that he would have been at Frogmore during the trip because he probably wanted to go through anything that belongs to him that's still there, remove anything from the property that he needs to get before they fully move out. So that would be my guess. I don't know. Did you hear it differently?
I heard that he stayed with some friends. but I mean, I don't have any confirmation of that. I know he did not see any family while he was there.
Right. Yeah, and that's one thing I was going to mention is we know he didn't see King Charles or Prince William during this trip. So, I do feel like people were getting really worked up over this. There was a lot of chatter online about, was King Charles ignoring him? And I just don't think that was it. As you said, Prince Charles was initially scheduled to be in France. Once that trip was canceled, he was then off to Germany. And when he was in the UK, I think there may have been a little bit of overlap there with Harry's visit, but he was staying at Highgrove. So he wasn't even in London. He wasn't nearby. And then we know the Waleses have been enjoying their spring break. So, I mean, we're suspecting they're probably vacationing outside of the UK. But it just seems like, sometimes you got to come to town to take care of business, and it's hard to meet up with family when you're only there for a few days and people have their schedules already planned so far in advance. And I think that's really what it came down to.
Yeah, I don't think it was some big drama like people are making it out to be. Well, before we move into our final story of the episode, I want to throw in, speaking of Sussexes going to court, that Meghan won her bid to dismiss her defamation lawsuit brought against her by her half sister, Samantha Markle. So while Harry was in court this past week, it looks like Meghan will avoid it. So good for her. Obviously, that's what she wanted. And who wants to go to court anyway? So that is over. So moving on, this is our last story of the Royal Rundown. I am endlessly fascinated by the Spencer sisters. These are Charles Spencer's daughters. He has three of them. Earl Charles Spencer, of course, is the younger brother of Princess Diana. He is the father of four. He has three girls and a boy. And he's the father of Kitty Spencer, who I know we've talked about on the show before, with her, I believe, five, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Dolce & Gabbana gowns for her wedding back in July of 2021. Stunning, by the way. He also has twin daughters, Eliza and Amelia. And Amelia recently married her longtime boyfriend, Greg Mallet, on March 21st in South Africa, where Amelia and her sisters were raised. By the way, I told you this before we started recording. I always want to call Amelia Abigail Spencer. Abigail Spencer is an actress and she's one of Meghan's friends. She was at Meghan and Harry's wedding, but this is not Abigail Spencer. This is Amelia Spencer. And the question about this wedding was whether Amelia and Greg would marry in South Africa or at Althorpe, which is, of course, the Spencer family's ancestral home. And I'm not saying the two are connected. Don't want to get that started, but I always want to call her Abigail. Amelia chose South Africa and her father wasn't there. Charles Spencer was not there. So they, and I didn't mention this, but the four kids, so Samuel, the son, and then Kitty and Eliza and Amelia I think they were born in London, but they were raised most of their childhood in South Africa. So that's the South African connection. So to be fair, although I really don't understand why Charles Spencer also was not at Kitty's wedding in Italy 2 years ago. So Greg and Amelia married on a mountaintop near Cape Town. They were together for 11 years before they got engaged back in July of 2020. And Amelia has been a wedding planner in South Africa. She's also a model and a luxury brand ambassador. And she and Eliza, who is her twin sister, as I said, moved to London back in 2021. And in February, they made their London Fashion Week debut when they walked the runway for Josh Birch Jones. And honestly, I keep waiting for one of the Spencer sisters to wear the Spencer tiara that Diana wore to her own wedding. I mean, obviously, that marriage did not really go well, but the wedding was beautiful and the tiara is beautiful. So I guess now Kitty didn't do it and Amelia didn't do it. So now I guess it's down to Eliza to do it. Although I will say, although a beautiful tiara, that tiara certainly carries a lot of weight and a lot of baggage with it. But I want you to look at this Versace gown, Jessica. I want you to prepare to have your breath taken away. I actually prefer the back of this dress to the front, but I think it is stunning, and I love wedding gowns with sleeves. Thank you, Kate Middleton, for bringing that back in vogue in 2011. I hope this trend will forever reign, but just look at these photos.
Okay, this is a very down to the detail dress. I mean, the lace, you can tell, it's very, very beautiful and very thought out in its design. Something that points out to me, I do see where you like the back of the dress more than the front. So the front actually is more fitted at the top, and then it kind of goes out, I would say, mid-thigh, maybe like a little
Hmm.
bit of like a mermaid, but grander.
Hmm.
But the top area, the abdomen part is sort of sheer. There's like a sheer lace over
Which I
there.
would never do, but that doesn't mean that Amelia can't do it. But
But
that's just not my style.
beautiful dress. But I will say the bridesmaids dresses I don't think are that flattering. They're this really,
Yeah,
really
I don't like
thin,
that.
very, very thin, like satiny looking material. And I feel like you can just see everything with that kind of material, like I don't know, something a little bit thicker or smoother, I think would have been more flattering.
Jessica, if you do that to me for your wedding, if you put me in that kind of dress, I will have a real problem with that. It's just, yeah, there is it's I mean the color is fine, whatever, but and I love satin, but it's just very unforgiving. Like you see everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And please don't ever do that to me. But yeah, the sleeves on Amelia's dress are stunning. The back is stunning. Does do I kind of we're kind of like digressing here, but do I kind of see a little bit of it looks kind of like a little shoulder pad situation. Do you
Yeah.
see
A little bit
that?
of, yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah.
Little
So
puffiness
anyway,
there.
absolutely beautiful. And compared to her sister Kitty, who had five dresses, she only had two. So we'll see what Eliza does when it's her time. But just I love and it's gonna be a minute before we have another royal wedding. It's probably gonna be Louise or James, and they're still teenagers. And
Mhm.
so it's gonna be a minute before we have another royal wedding. So we have to grab onto these royally adjacent weddings where when we can. So I'm grabbing onto this one.
Well, I do think that's interesting that her father wasn't at the wedding or Kitty's wedding. I had not thought about that until you brought that up, and I wonder why.
Yeah, I don't know. And Samuel walked Amelia down the aisle, and I don't know. I don't think they have a strained relationship. I mean, I don't I've written like one article about the Spencer girls. No, I have written more about Kitty, I think, but um I don't think there's like strain there. I mean, I know when they got engaged, Charles Spencer wrote a very kind tweet about it. So I don't think there's drama, but I don't know. He wasn't like I said, he wasn't at Kitty's either, so I don't know what's up with that.
Well, let's go ahead and get into royals around the world. Okay, so there's not a ton to discuss this week, but I do want to mention we saw some of our favorite royals in New York City today. Did you see that,
Mm.
Rachel?
No, I haven't seen that.
So, Princess Beatrice, along with Princess Sofia and Prince Carl Philip of Sweden, were all in attendance at the World Dyslexia Assembly today. Princess Beatrice has talked in the past about having dyslexia, and if you didn't know, Prince Carl Philip has also been diagnosed with that. So, the assembly, like I said, took place in New York City. Princess Beatrice is an ambassador for the Made by Dyslexia charity, which is part of this event. So, they all had their photo taken together. You can go check it out online. She was actually re-wearing a dress of hers. It was like a navy, like collar dress with like a belt around the waist. But yeah, it was a re-wear. So definitely go check that out. Another story that we'll talk about today. So, the palace in Monaco has had to respond to rumors that Prince Albert and Princess Charlene are getting a divorce. So,
Again, I feel like this comes up like every couple of years.
I know. Apparently, a French magazine claimed that they had separated. And as you can expect, that started a bunch of other outlets sharing the story across social media. And I guess it just got so out of hand that the palace felt they needed to make a formal statement. So they responded saying the rumors were totally unfounded and malicious. And honestly, that's the story on that. There really wasn't much else aside from the fact that they shut down the rumors. And as a reminder for listeners, they've been married since 2011. They had twins in 2014. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what started those rumors or where
I
that came.
feel like we have this conversation about Albert and Charlene about every other year. And like even when they got married, the big story was that Charlene was crying at her wedding. She didn't
Mhm.
want to do it. And I mean, obviously they've been together for 12 years. And I mean, I just feel like let's come up with something new. I mean, I don't know. I just appreciate, the palace speaking out and saying that this isn't happening. But I mean, these rumors have dogged them forever. Like
Yeah.
literally since their wedding day.
Yeah, it's interesting. And there's been all kinds of stuff about their relationship for the past 10 plus years. And I think if I remember correctly, the palace has had to step in and make statements before about it. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, apparently they're untrue. So if you see anything online about that, you can disregard that information.
And it sounds like, as you said in a previous episode, we'll see them at the coronation in about a month.
Yeah, yeah. So look out for that. That'll be a fun event to spot royals at.
Yeah, be like, oh, there's all the royals we hear podcast royal talk about. There's Monaco. There's I don't know, I don't know if they're coming, but Sweden or whoever.
Well, that's all for Royals Around the World today. So before we close out the show, I did want to leave listeners with a little spring style inspo, I guess. I've got some ideas for you inspired by the Princess of Wales. So we have talked about our lifestyle content and trying to bring a little bit more of that back to the show. We used to do it quite often when we first got started, but we've had so much royal news lately, it's been hard to squeeze it in. But I do have something for listeners today. So if you are looking to incorporate some royal trends into your wardrobe this season, I've got some for you from Catherine. Okay, so we have seen photos of her this year so far, and even late last year, that has given me some ideas, and I've been keeping my eyes out on websites and looking for trends. So here's 5 ideas that you can try if you're looking to spice up your spring wardrobe. First up, consider purchasing a pair of classic white sneakers. So we've seen Catherine in white sneakers a few times, and I love these because they're so versatile. We see her wear them with jeans, we see her wear them with trousers, and I also think that they look really cute with a dress or shorts or even yoga pants. Think like a really simple, classic, low profile, casual sneaker. To me, they make an outfit really fun. And if you're looking for a brand, we've seen Catherine wear both Superga sneakers and the Vejas. But really any simple white casual sneaker will work. So that's
And
number one.
Jessica practices what she preaches because the other night, less than a week ago, at a Mexican restaurant, I saw her in Vejas. Is that how you say that word?
The
Vejas or
Veja, yeah.
Vejas or whatever. So you have your own pair of classic white sneakers, and I commented on them, and so you were rocking the royal shoe.
Yes, yes. All right. So next, you'll definitely want to incorporate a small handbag into your wardrobe this season. So we do often see Catherine carrying like a mini purse that honestly probably only holds a credit card, a lip gloss, and maybe keys. Not like she really needs any of those
I was
items,
gonna
but
say somebody's carrying that stuff for her, so
that's
she's
really beside
good.
the point here. It's a fashion statement. And we've seen her wear several brands. So she likes Stradberry, she likes Polaine, she likes Mulberry, and others. And a lot of these bags have either like a small handle on the top that you can carry it with, or they've got a longer strap or a chain so you can wear it like a crossbody. If you want to be like Catherine, I say carry it with the little handle at the top. That's usually what we see her doing. And speaking of me practicing what I preach, Rachel, back in February, we saw her carrying one of the small Polaine bags when she visited a nursing home, I think. And I was really excited about this because I actually own the same exact bag. And when I purchased it, I did not know she had it. So when I saw her, I was like, wait, that's my purse.
She's
But her,
obviously following your fashion trends, not the other way around.
yeah, maybe so. Maybe she has like a secret Instagram account she's following me on. But um,
Obviously.
no, so mine is black. She had the navy one, but it was still really cool to see. So definitely look for some kind of small handbag for this spring.
Mm.
Another item I recommend for your wardrobe is a really light colored warm weather blazer, like a white or a cream. I know Catherine's been loving blazers lately, and they're really in style right now. So again, another pretty versatile wardrobe item. I feel like you can put this on for a meeting at the office, or you can wear it over a dress if you're going out to dinner. But again, look for something lightweight and a lighter color like white or cream. I think they're very polished, super in style. And I love a blazer. How do you feel about blazers,
Oh, I
Rachel?
love them. Love them. I love it when she wears a blazer with jeans and her white
Yeah,
tennis shoes, white sneakers. I love that.
totally. Okay, so number 4 on my list is a little bit different. I'm suggesting houndstooth,
Oh
and
God, here we go again with the houndstooth again.
I
And which I don't dislike houndstooth, but just it's not from the University of Alabama. Just clarify.
well, I know this one seems a little bit odd because when I think of houndstooth, I feel like it's maybe more of a winter wardrobe
Yeah.
staple. I feel like we usually see it on coats or other like cool weather fabrics, but I'm actually seeing some warm weather takes on houndstooth recently. As a reminder, we've seen Catherine and Princess Eugenie in houndstooth in recent months, and they were both in the classic kind of black and white colorway. But what I'm seeing online right now is pastel houndstooth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just thinking like a really cute tweed houndstooth dress or a skirt in like a lavender or a robin's egg blue
Mm-hmm.
pattern. We have Easter coming up this weekend. So I'm wondering if we're going to see some pastel houndstooth Easter dresses.
Mm.
But if you see this online, I say give it a try. I don't know if you'd be into it, Rachel. I know like you're maybe a little bit tired of houndstooth, but
No, I'm
I
not
think
tired of houndstooth. I am tired. Maybe I'm tired of black and white houndstooth. I really liked Kate's blue houndstooth. Amelia
mhm.
said, and I love the idea of like a lilac or a lavender houndstooth dress. I like that.
Totally. Yeah, I think freshening it up in a pastel color makes it feel totally new. So try that. And then my last item is not really an item, it's more of just a way of dressing. And that is to incorporate some rewears of your favorite nicer pieces from your closet. Again, Catherine's been famous for doing this for a while now. More recently, we saw her re-wearing that white gown at the BAFTAs. And like I mentioned, Princess Beatrice was actually re-wearing a navy dress of hers at that dyslexia event in New York City today. So don't be afraid to recycle some pieces from your wardrobe. I really like this idea. I've been trying to do it myself and, not shop quite as much if I've got something I can already wear.
I
So,
love that. All totally doable. Like listeners, you can incorporate all of those things into your spring wardrobe. That's good stuff.
yeah, I hope that was fun for everyone. Like I said, we want to incorporate more of these and we'll find ways to squeeze it in along with all of our big royal rundowns every week.
Love it. Well, anything else for the good of the order before we wrap up?
That's all I've got.
Cool. Well, listeners, we've got some great interviews coming up for you. We've got two back to back. Stay tuned on this Friday, for a very special interview with royal expert Sally Bedell Smith. She is fantastic. One of the last royal experts I think we haven't talked to on this show. And she was just a wealth of knowledge. And she's got a new book coming out. And even though we won't have an episode out next Wednesday, we will have another special guest on the show April 14th, which is not this Friday, but the next Friday. We are having royal photographer Chris Jackson back. He's back for his second time on the show. He also has a new book coming out, and it is all about the king and his queen, and just so many beautiful photos. Both were great interviews, and listeners, we know you will enjoy them. So, two good interviews coming up.
And listeners, I do want to remind you before we finish today to please go online and follow us on social media. You can find us at Instagram at Podcast Royal. If you have any thoughts or any feedback you want to share with us, you can do so at hello@podcastroyal@gmail.com. That's our email address. And then, of course, we really, really value the reviews. Please, please, please take a few seconds if you love the podcast to go to your Apple Podcast app and rate us, leave us a review. I think you can also leave us a star rating on Spotify as well. So thank you so much for tuning in to episode 89 of Podcast Royal, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.